Innsmouth Hive, it's sweltering this deep into the Sump as your favorite pirate Voxcast 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio attempts to live up to our name, by exposing ourselves to all sorts of new fun chemicals. Since those
exposing ourselves.
I do that regularly.
Since those hivequakes last week, rumors about new openings in the lost vaults of the Innsmouth Sump are all anyone in the Underhive can talk about, and Kevin's tips on where to find archaeotech have always been as hot as radioactive slag. As always, joining me today is our map expert and navigator, Marky.
Oh, that is not me. So in boot, I actually followed the guy that was better at nav. And I was wait.
So you're telling me you were a lieutenant in boot camp?
No, you have to do nav too. In that sense, okay. Yeah. I followed the guy that was better at nav.
Mark started life as a lieutenant, huh? And they couldn't train it out of him.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not.
And it was all downhill from there.
This is a fucking compass? What is this? I've never seen this in my life.
Dude, I fucking love maps and compasses.
What is this, a sextant?
On the twin-linked belt-fed autocannon grenade combo is our security officer, Beast.
How's it going, everyone?
And today's adventure in the Sump crust is brought to us by our fearless rust-stalking scout, Kevin. Tell us, who did you con out of all these juicy leads?
So, it's less of a con and more of a slightly imbalanced deal.
And where did you get that sump crust from?
Sump crust.
Sump crust.
It's like a pizza. They're like, brand new pizza now with sump crust.
I've peeled it off the coolant housing this morning.
Now I'm craving pizza.
Right. I could go for some
I don't think that's what sump crust means.
Sump crust.
That's a pizza place. The Sump crust. I like it.
I like that too. Yeah.
As always, I am your plasma torch. At least that's what they think I brought. Technician Goblin King.
Actually just his butthole.
I was like, it's actually just a huge dildo.
The breakfast burrito I didn't have this morning. So today's episode, we are going to talk about the weapons and tech in Warhammer 40k, and the weapons and tech in Warhammer 40k are fucking insane. To start us off,
make no sense.
What's up?
I said, and also make no sense.
I think they're fucking cool.
So Warhammer 40k is basically a post-apocalyptic science fiction setting with a lot of the refined and perfected elements of a traditional sci-fi setting missing. The sort of smooth and polished edges of a universe, kind of like Star Trek. But there's still a lot of high-tech wizardry sprinkled throughout the setting. Laser weapons, giant robotic warriors, ancient examples of artificial intelligences, plasma weapons, cannons that are capable of crippling a moon in a single shot. However, even with everything I just stated, Tom would like to bring up the fact that they still use melee weapons. I feel like you have a hot take on 40k's melee weapon use, Tom.
I just don't understand the full commitment to it. Like having a knife or something, totally cool. Space Marines, combat knife, makes sense. Awesome, I can agree. Why the hell is there a dude with like Wolverine claws running around with a jetpack in open field?
I had an interesting theory proposal that I had actually stated earlier.
This is why.
I'm sorry, but if I'm standing there and that's running across a field, I'm going to shoot her in the face.
Well, but she has,
shoot him in the face.
Shoot him in the face.
Yeah, but faith in the Emperor blocks the bullet.
That's also, don't even get me started on the whole faith thing. Yeah. Emperor don't give a fuck. All right, like plain and simple. Like the Emperor don't do shit. All right,
he has done shit.
He just sits there and holds.
No, he's too busy doing the fucking navigation. Right? Like, ain't nobody on a planet like, yes, help me, Emperor. And he's like, yes, I'll be there. He's like,
no, it happened.
That's
in
the
several
noise
books
right there.
Well,
so,
out of how many billions of millions of people?
They didn't matter.
So this bitch doesn't matter.
Yeah, but she's faithful, so she mattered.
Do it.
So they actually talk about it a lot in the Horus Heresy, and the fact that like the belief in the Emperor is creating the psychic field that allows people to survive. So it's a lot like what we talked about in our last episode, where we talked about the same thing where there's enough Eldar of a certain level of psychic potential that are existing with each other,
nut juice.
that it's creating a baseline psychic background, and then
got that bone juice,
and then individual people can tap into it. It's the orc's the same thing. The Wa energy. There's enough orc psychic potential that orcs are able to tap into it. The difference is that humans have attached a religious foci to it. So the emperor is, folk
you, sir.
He's a what's it called? He's a figurehead. He is the thing that they focus on, which allows them to tap into their psychic potential. So the barrier of faith is not a barrier of faith. That chick is projecting her own psychic energy, but because being psychic is wrong, she's using faith. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Tom, I hear you. However, I think we all have some differing opinions on why melee weapons make sense. So Tom, your opinion is that, you're going to get shot in the face if you try to run up on me.
Well, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. Do I think it's cool? Yes. Am I super happy that there are? Yes, absolutely. Okay. A shock lance on a Cerastus Knight, coolest fucking thing on the planet, right? Totally rad. Do I think that it really makes sense when you boil it down? When it comes to larger things, I do. But when it comes to open field combat, that's when it's okay, use it on shipboard. Yeah, okay, makes sense. You don't want to fucking shoot a hole in the ship. I understand. Right. But or dealing with shields, dealing with void shields and stuff like that. You got to get in there. I understand. Right. But open field combat,
dedicated close combat
units.
Yeah.
That's my issue. Does the whole blade guard vets
that just sounds like a bad general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all right, cool. We're going to war. Oh, we're fighting Necrons. I'm sending blade guard vets across this field. It's why?
Well, I mean, from a tactical point of view, if you're fighting an enemy that's bad at melee combat, then getting into melee combat would be a beneficial tactic. So but
if they're bad at melee, that means they're good at shooting.
Exactly. Right. So in that fucking field,
which can be negated by good tactics.
Okay. Yeah, I can see.
You lure them into an ambush. You strike from the flanks, and you just massacre them.
So,
could you imagine? A bunch of fire warriors marching along in a line, and a bunch of blade guard vets popping out of the bushes and just mulching 1,000 of them?
Oh, don't even get me started on Space Marines and stealth. Don't.
Space Marine can be sneaky.
No, they can't.
There was a great video.
If a Space Marine is hiding out of line of sight and isn't moving, you're not going to know he's there.
I think I know what Tom's getting at. So there is a video that I saw this weekend of or probably this week, and it was failing your stealth check in D&D, what it means for a warrior. And it was 2 security guards standing at a mall, and there's just a bunch of people in Ren Fair garb trying to sneak behind them, and it's a bunch of dudes in plate mail. So it's clunk, clunk, clunk. Yeah. They're just all doing it. And at the very end of 10 people going by, which sounds like a Hare Krishna parade with the symbols and everything. That's what it sounds like when a bunch of people in armor walk by. At the very end, one guard turns to the other guard and is like, "Hey, did you hear something?" And the other guy's like, "Nah." And that's what Tom's getting at. When you're wearing that much shit, I mean, and they talk about it in the books. The fucking pistons hiss, the hoses clank. They talk about how loud the power armor for Space Marines is. It doesn't really make sense that Space Marines are sneaking around very effectively.
No, I'm not saying they're tiptoeing around, getting up behind people with slitting their throats. I'm saying they're hiding just out of line of sight. But the distance that a Space Marine can cover in a very short amount of time with a sprint to then proceed to put his fist through you and your friend's
which you
torso.
See in the Astartes.
Yeah. At that range, if if the Space Marines set up an ambush, they would be there days in advance. And a Space Marine can sit for days without eating, drinking, and doing anything else.
I'm going to turn my asshole off. So
they
for the next.
And so then they just park themselves in under the swamp or something, in the bushes and in the reeds and shit where nobody can see them. And then you wait till an army walks by, they jump out of the bushes, run 20 yards, and then just massacre them. That makes sense.
I mean, I can see Tom's
point. But that's not an open field engagement. Right. That's using strategic value of melee troops to capitalize on the enemy's weakness.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, go ahead, Ryan.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say, I'm thinking more like Space Hulk. You want melee Space Hulk.
Exactly. It's bringing the right tool for the job.
Right.
Well,
it's just
something to keep in mind too, which being that Warhammer 40k is a tactical game is probably something important. When you learn military, when you learn modern military tactics, a lot of modern military tactics are based on the things that the Macedonians were doing with hoplites, which were shields and spears. And the shield and the spear was the top military technology for like 1,000 years until
shield and spear is great. Well, shield and spear counters cavalry because spears beat cavalry.
Right.
Shields beat archers.
But,
so the only thing that shield and spear loses against is dedicated shield spear breakers, which is like two-handed axes and two-handed swords.
Mounted horse archers and mounted cavalry fucked up the standard shield and spear. The difference was it was too expensive to field a lot of it. If you got into a battle
prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. If you got into a battle before like the 1800s in world history and the other guy had cavalry, you were probably going to fucking lose.
So it's mainly just having another tool on your belt.
Right.
Like having melee combat as a tool is a good thing.
No, and I get that.
Tactics,
but dedicated whole units, like
you said, like Blade Guard or
it's just like all right, we're gonna go into battle. Let's we're going into this like war. We're gonna be
walk your ass across that field.
Grab our machine guns. Everybody get their cannons and stuff, and you guys with the shields, go ahead and start walking.
So you're saying like if it was like an infiltrating unit with close combat, it's a different story.
Totally cool. Space Marines with knives like coming in, like totally cool, super understandable. Or not even knives, but like some like they're big giant Space Marines, so like something like a fucking sword. Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. Because like you have to, a Space Marine is drastically bigger than a human.
Yeah. So it's like
a human's going to have zero chance, nearly zero chance in close combat.
Here's one of the reasons that even in the conversation we're having right now, something like chain swords on open field combat makes sense. And this is still
need line breakers.
This is still taught in military school now. This is Macedonian battle tactics. You're engaging with your anvil, all of your dudes who are shooting. And then while that is making a bunch of noise and a bunch of whatever, your hammer sneaks around behind it and fucking lights into their backs with chain swords. It makes sense.
That's why assault marines have jetpacks.
It can't be
to
your
Tom's point, you
entire
can light
army.
their ass.
Yeah, or you could just go back behind them with him with flamethrowers.
Right.
Which would be far more effective.
Aren't you Mr. Farsight?
It's near sight.
But then somebody jumps a bunch of boys into the back of your gun line. Log, Mr. Bond.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's not cool.
Right.
It's rad. It's like I love it.
Certain instances, it's fucking dumb.
It's just certain instances. This
absolutely.
is not effective. This is costly. This is not as like casualty inducing, right? Because like I said, literally all of you shut your mouths when I went or flamers. You know what I mean? And it's like that's way more effective. Like
there's actually one other reason that Space Marines use chainsaws that I want to bring up. I think now is a good time to do it.
Terror weapons.
It is a terror. It is a terror weapon.
Totally. See, and that I totally understand. Like that I can totally get behind. Like,
do you imagine like one of your friends just like a couple feet away literally gets turned into paste? But then also too, I mean, that's the thing. Like a Space Marine. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think a Space Marine needs more terror. Just by its presence alone should do it.
He could literally just rip someone in half, and to me, that is far more scary.
Yeah, but then
that cherry did that with his bare hands.
The cherry is that he can also do that with a thing like a chainsaw.
Yeah,
it gives him the reach. It gives extra reach, and you can hit multiple targets with it. Like
don't get me wrong. Like chain swords are probably my most favorite thing on the planet.
Yeah, those things are sick.
I love chains.
Now,
actually, chain fists are my favorite.
Chain fists are pretty badass.
They're my favorite. But still, like, it's just one of those things where I'm just like
argue and talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
All right.
But that's my thing. Is I'm like it is. I would say most instances in what we know as to be, because I mean, what we play is a skirmish game.
Right.
We don't play the big games, right?
I mean, Apocalypse is a pretty big game.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
and in Apocalypse, how often does melee happen?
Not
that often.
Only in the sewer. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Only in the sewer where you fought demons.
Or with Titans.
Yeah,
so everything else, no melee.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a Space Marine ain't gonna run up and like punch a Titan in the foot. Yeah, like, it's not gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Let's put it this way: all of The chaos bullshit that came running across at me and a little bit of Tom's stuff up top
It got blown away, right?
literally got blown away before it could get into melee.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what's
Like it was just evaporated.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
off the
Steve,
table.
have better tactics. All right, that's all I got.
Well,
we needed a wider table.
Yeah, we
Really
definitely
needed. That was very
no, I
much
liked
fucking
it.
bottleneck.
I liked it.
I know, but it was a bottleneck.
It was great. I got to park Basilisk like 8 feet away from the enemy and still do damage. It was fucking beautiful.
I was like, you have a Warhound and a freaking Porphyron, like standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, it was
like,
pretty sick.
nothing's walking past you.
No, it was the gateway of doom.
Yeah, but see, like, you know, and so those like that's very much in like when we talk about Titan combat, that's a completely different animal.
And it's
Because-
things with shields.
Yeah, I'm doing
Things with shields or things that are just naturally like a squig off that are so big that shooting it short of like using super weapons isn't viable.
Right.
Yeah,
Like I'm sure if you were able to like drop nuclear, like, you know, battlefield grade nuclear weapons on a Titan, it would probably hurt.
yeah, but like that, like void shields, like you got to get into the shields like that. I understand, you know what I mean, and
but
like
void
very much
shields-
like the Dune shield.
It's
like,
almost
yeah.
exactly like Dune shields. So void shields actually really like the concept. Void shields are like a windshield wiper spinning around
yeah,
whatever it is. And so when something comes in super fast, it gets slapped and
It's like
teleported
it's
into another
deflecting,
dimension.
right?
Yeah. Well, it's deflected and like zapped into the warp kind of something.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wait,
Void
what?
shields are based off some like really weird dark
Yeah,
ages
hence
technology
void.
stuff.
I was gonna say they don't actually
they're
fully
supposed to be used in
understand it, right?
space is why they're void shields. They're supposed to be used for orbital debris.
Right.
But
But they
then,
put 'em on Titans.
then they figured out like, hey, this also works for guns.
It's not void shields. It's
What do you
I
talking
think
about?
it's the Agris. There's a type of void shield that anything that hits it teleports into the warp.
I thought that was just the way they all kind of not the warp exactly, but they
No,
get
it literally just dumps it into it hits it and it dumps it into the warp.
it's just like, hey, bye.
yeah. This is for you.
Maybe it is just void
This
shields.
is for you.
No, but still, like that part I understand. Like that's what I like about Dune, and what they got from Dune was like, yeah, they use melee combat because the shields, it was the only way to get through them.
And certain
Right.
Space Marines are wearing those shields.
Yeah, that's
Iron
the
Halo is that.
Yeah,
That's what
That's
Iron
the
Halo is.
invulnerability. In theory, that's the invulnerability
Yarrick
save.
has a refractor field, which
Right.
is literally a Dune personal shield.
Yep. House
That's what
shields.
Yarrick is wearing.
Oh,
All
Okay.
commanders too.
Yeah, that's why all the Imperial officers have.
It's just because they're so
It's not very
expensive.
great.
They don't give them to everybody.
Yeah,
It-
it's not worth equipping all the troops, but commissars and stuff carry them.
that is a new bit of information I did not know.
You didn't know they had refractor?
No, well, I didn't know what a refract. I thought it was just like a shield. Like, I mean, like a shield generator on like a crisis suit is literally like an electromagnetic like wave.
Mm.
Like it pulses. It basically so like a Tau shield generator is a synthesized like electromagnetic stimulator.
Mhm.
Right. So basically this thing pulses at such a frequency and like
that it like
that-
magnetically
that it deflects.
slaps.
that the like electricity like in the air shatters bonds and then reconstructs it. Right. So it basically can create a grid
Yeah.
out of electricity and
That'll
magnetic
stop
fields
whatever.
that will stop whatever's coming near it.
Huh. Okay.
Right. So that's essentially like what it is it's like an literally an electric magnetic field.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
okay.
an electricity net. I pulled up a picture of
Yeah.
Yeah,
fucking dope
Yeah. So
looking.
That's
basically
super
what
cool.
that's doing is like reconstructing the static in the air with magnetic fields to create that grid.
That's dope.
So
that's
cool.
So that's not the same.
No, as a refractor
exactly.
field, right.
Yeah. So
So
that's
according-
why I was like, I thought it was just like that. Like,
No, yeah, the Imperials do have refractor fields that do what we're talking about, which is basically the same as the Dune shield.
Yeah. So according to the little blurb that I pulled up in the book, it's unclear whether void shields neutralize the incoming projectile or direct the energy beam in real space through the manipulation of gravitonic or other physical forces, transporting it directly into the warp, or whether some other method is deployed to displace the damaging force of a physical attack upon the vehicle or vessel. However, in the Siege of Terra books, they're talking, and that's where my brain got messed up. The Emperor's Palace has a specific type of void shield that's called like an Agrius or an Agris or something. It's like a super
Aegis.
powerful one. Yes.
Right. Aegis, yeah.
And they talk about in that where like
I think Aegis is Greek for shield.
Yeah.
Horus's forces are getting like a little bit of a bonus because the Imperium is taking all this violence and just dumping it into the warp, which is making the violence that they're throwing against the shields bigger because some of that violence is coming from the warp. So like the Dark Mechanicus was using the shit that the shield was dumping into the warp to slingshot back into their attacks.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, just recycle this ammunition.
Yeah. Because the Death Watch have something called the Dominus Aegis, which is, I'm assuming, is like the dominant shield or the dominated
Dominus
shield.
Pattern version of the shield for the Dominus Crusade.
Yeah, the Dominus Aegis is like a bubble shield, essentially.
Super shield.
That's cool.
So onto one of the points that Tom had made. I had always looked at the use of chain weapons and power swords and all of that in Warhammer 40k as being that it's the shipboarding tactic. And we haven't really talked a lot about ship-to-ship combat, but ship-to-ship combat in 40k is not, it's a lot like, it's naval combat. It's a lot like naval combat from the 16 or 1700s.
It's inspired by Napoleonic.
Yeah, you're not trying to blow the other dude up and fucking completely scuttle his shit in a couple of hits. You want that ship. And a lot of the reasons is because these, especially in the Imperium, these ships haven't been built new in 10,000-ish years in some cases, and some of them are even older. Some of them are 30,000 years old. Some of them date back to the earliest chunks of the age.
Yeah, the bigger the ship,
technology.
the older it is, because building big ships is generally lost to the Mechanicus. They can still rebuild lots of small stuff, and even the light cruisers and some of that stuff can easily be replaced. But like the battle cruisers and, you know, all the big ships, any of the specialized, like larger craft are basically impossible to reconstruct.
Yeah. So
boarding actions would be way more common. There was actually, I remember reading.
Yeah, there's ships designed for boarding.
Yeah. There's several things that I read, and it was like, there's a couple of cool tactics from that they use. So it's all inspired by Napoleon, but they definitely took their own space spin on it. And one of the ships was using what they called it. So they changed rolling broadside from a term used for naval tactics, from, you know, cannon broadside age, into you actually roll the ship horizontally about its axis, so that way both sides of the ship can fire. So that way you're constantly broadsiding and reloading.
Yeah.
Well,
but they also come in. They use orbital mechanics, which is very reminiscent of the way that you would maneuver a sail ship to get behind your opponent. But it would take like hours to set up one of these maneuvers in a sailboat because of how slow they are,
right,
and how slow they turn, and how the wind, you have to follow wind currents. And orbital mechanics are kind of the same way. If you were to try to set up a broadside,
gravity and whatnot,
and then if you make a maneuver in an orbital setting, it doesn't actually change anything until 180 degrees the other side of your orbit.
Yeah.
So if I'm above North America and I thrust towards the North Pole, that will actually affect me going south over China.
I can't
on the other side of the planet.
I can't seem to find a good picture of it, but there's the whole concept that like you want to turn your broadside so they face the ship as much as possible, and the other guy wants to turn his ship as much nose in, so it's the smallest target possible. So you end up with a lot of these like naval battles in this era that the Age of Sail ended up being these like T patterns a lot it's
almost like a dogfight where they're
you
trying
can
to
discover
do this
it
on
for
each
yourself
other
by playing Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, actually Sea of Thieves is very much the same kind of tactics.
But
the other thing that they employed was the Imperial style of ship is also very Roman Greek style. The ream style,
with
the long,
with the prong,
the armored prow with the big ass ram.
Well, that's how they used to do that. So they actually found this out recently. There's an Imperial Knight that actually has the same weapon that the siege ships have for boarding actions.
The siege claw?
The laser.
Oh,
the laser that cuts through ships. There's an Imperial Knight with that as its arm.
That's badass.
Oh, really? It's got like something beam cannon. Yeah, something like that.
That's badass.
Yeah, dude, and it has another weapon that if it's not careful, it'll blink itself into the fucking warp. It basically creates a black hole when it shoots it.
That's one of the weapons I wanted to talk about.
That's some like Horus Heresy bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. It's an old pattern knight.
But and in the Greek style of boarding action, that was very common. You didn't sink ships, you just boarded ships.
Yeah, you
want to hit them, and then you're like, ah!
And everybody jumps on, jumps from your prow into their boat.
I've watched.
You basically want to
Alexander
do
and Troy. And
you basically want to do a bunch of damage that's repairable, so you have another ship in your fleet. It's
I've watched 300 too.
I mean,
It's
you do that in whatchamacallit, the game, Battlefleet Gothic.
Yeah, it's the same idea.
Oh.
Where you ram them, it does morale damage. Then you boarding, it does more morale damage, and you can theoretically
you can overthrow the ship. Yeah.
And you can kill all the crew and then take the ship sometimes.
Right.
But
it's
a little harder.
Yeah.
As much of all of this is kind of based on the idea of the Age of Sail. And Kevin, you had mentioned that in the Age of Sail, it took a long time to do some of these maneuvers and tactics. One of the reasons I think that translates really well to a sci-fi setting is you've got these enormous relativistic distances. And one of the things that they've only kind of recently started to talk about in the books is the fact that a lot of these ships will fire on each other before they can actually see each other. So they see a pinprick, they see a star moving a little bit, and their sensors are telling them that's a ship, and that's when they fire their missiles. That's when they fire their boarding torpedoes and everything, because they're trying to get the drop on the other guy. And in the first or second book, I think it's the first book of the Siege of Terra, when they're talking about the battle that happens on the outside of the universe, not the outside of the universe, the outside of the solar system, like Pluto and all of that crap. They talk about the idea that there are chaos cultists in boarding torpedoes. One, the boarding torpedoes are hitting so hard that not all of the cultists are surviving. A lot of them are just splattering against the deck. And the other thing is a couple of them fucking miss. And then it gets into that idea of torpedo warfare in World War II. You fire a torpedo, where's it going to go? Well, the piloted torpedoes, the Japanese piloted torpedoes. Oh, yeah. That there is a dude in that, and that torpedo just goes, and that dude either detonates himself or sinks to the bottom of the ocean and dies. Like, there are torpedoes full of space marines that may just be cruising out into the outer darkness, and they don't know. They don't know until, and they talked about like Khorn berserkers being in these boarding torpedoes, and they're just going out and like going insane because they have nobody to beat up. They kill each other.
Get out of here! They're all just sitting there like, all right, don't you worry, it's coming. It's coming. We're gonna get there.
The other one's like, are we there yet?
Yeah. And these Khorn berserkers are so pumped up and ready to fucking murder each other that sometimes even the like 5-minute flight between ships, they start fighting amongst themselves because nothing's going on. So you just have to imagine, like, by the time that torpedo gets 8 minutes out, all those dudes, there's one dude alive in there. He was the last guy. That's all
you need, baby. Yeah. You don't want a Khorn berserker in your fucking bulkhead, dude.
It's crazy because you think like now we have planes engaging from BVR, beyond visual range, and it's like they're firing missiles at each other. They literally can't see each other. Yeah. So like
the whole idea
now in space,
Star Wars idea of dogfighting. Yeah. The whole Star Wars idea of dogfighting is based on World War II movies. And there's no reason that an X-Wing and a TIE fighter would actually engage each other in visual range. That would happen. Yeah. That they would, one of those sides is going to win before the big ships even see each other. But it's dope.
Yeah, the only thing that generally can be used to explain why sci-fi combat is so close range, well, 2 reasons. One, it fits better on a camera.
Yeah, you got to cheat the camera
because you don't have to zoom out as far to show everything going on at once. And the other reason is electromagnetic or like ECM.
Yeah, electronic countermeasures.
Yeah, like okay, so two stealth planes get into a radar fight. Nobody wins. That's the end of it.
Even in the American Revolution, the marksmen, the sharpshooters, the guys that had some of the first rifled barrels, they were the dudes that had the saying, don't shoot until you see the white in their eyes. So even the guys who could hit something 100 yards away because they'd trained their entire life to hunt with those rifles, even those guys were like, nah, dog, we're not going to shoot until we can see the white part of our enemy's eye.
I can guarantee that it's going to hit.
Yeah. I'm not
because also in space combat, like you're saying, if all you show up as is a star super far away and you're like, I don't know, that's kind of sus. It's probably a ship. It's kind of like watching like U-boat or, any of the U-boat movies where it's like, what's that sound?
Yeah.
Like exactly. I'm always imagining on the command deck, you have basically the equivalent of the sonar guy. listening to the sweeps, the beeps, and the creeps.
Right.
That's why in Starship Troopers, I was like, how the fuck did they not see that asteroid coming?
Right, because there's always some dude,
kind of countermeasure.
It was dark.
No, because somebody was.
It comes out of the shadow, and it was like, oh!
At the
Her
same
coffee
time,
moves.
you'd probably be existentially hold based on what you just said if you understood how many things we fucking miss all the time.
Oh,
There's
yeah, that's
so
true.
much shit in near Earth orbit that we just like when those articles come out and they're like, the biggest space rock is going to pass by Earth in 3 months. Scientists aren't worried. It will be blah, blah, blah. Usually those articles are released when scientists are like, oh, fuck, this almost hit us a month ago and we didn't see it.
Well, yeah, because we don't have that. We haven't focused our shit to like look for that stuff. Really.
That's why
We've
Starship Troopers
focused a
uses
lot of our technology at looking for that. Like, there's a lot of research that's gone into specifically trying to make sure that especially in the last 10, 20 years, that near Earth objects are tracked. And
then in another 500 years, it'll be pretty good.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Nah, shit was hiding in the shadows. Couldn't see it.
So what's
the good old coffee told us it was there.
Well, if it comes out of the sun, you've got a bunch of electromagnetic radiation behind it. You've
definitely.
That was my favorite
radiation.
part. They're going and they're like, there's something out there. And then it's like, it comes out of
literally
like where the fuck is the sun? Like, what's casting that shadow?
Right? Like, was it fucking
I'm more
Jupiter?
worried about that.
Like, yeah, what's casting the shadow?
Yeah, where was that thing fucking hiding? Like,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm not used to the mic being here, so now it's like in my fucking way.
Yeah,
sorry,
definitely. Man. And then in Warhammer, actually leading into another reason why Titans aren't always engaging from stupidly long range is they have like the Chaos have the scrap code that they unleash, which is basically static, chaos static that makes it so the sensors can't pick up anything at long range, which is probably why bolters only have a range of 24 inches.
24 inches.
I think the reason that the reason a lot of the things on tabletop have such small ranges is because that they're trying to encourage people to play on tables you can reach across. I think that's a scalability issue. Yeah. I think
that's the part that bothers
they should
me.
have like 72-inch range, but if every weapon on table, if every medium engagement weapon on tabletop had a 72-inch range, you'd be playing on a 400-inch table, and then you're no longer able to reach into the middle to manipulate shit.
Or you would actually not use melee weapons. Oh, shocking.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
and
when you have like a bolter that's 24 inches, but it's like, hey, I can run 17.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, cool. That's why you take a sword.
Tell me about it. I'm guardsman. That is literally my problem.
And I mean, I totally, like, I'll be the first to admit, I totally utilize this when I play. I'm like, yeah, I have a knight. I can move 12 inches and I'm going to advance and I'm going to charge. Like, that's cool. Like,
so in Kill Team, they actually took that away. There's no ranges on weapons anymore. Everything is unlimited range.
Because in Kill Team, theoretically, all those weapons would be able to shoot completely across.
Now, if they could just do that. Now, if they could just do that in the actual 40k game.
There should just be weapons that are considered full map weapon range.
Right.
And then there should be weapons that are considered short range, which are
like shotguns and stuff like that.
That stuff. That would be cool. And then they could go back to templates for those weapons.
Right?
Could you imagine like cannons and autocannons, heavy bolters, full map?
And there would stop being all this fucking shotguns. Spam of melee units that I'm complaining about.
But it would also invalidate entire armies and entire play styles unless they change other rules. It's nice.
So demonettes don't have a gun.
They don't have any range.
Yeah.
Well, they have the harp girl that I got for summer actually has a super ball and range attack. It hits like a bow cannon.
Oh, that's it.
Then give them some fucking stupid, like, give them the actual
titty
ability.
blasters.
Give them the actual abilities.
Austin Powers.
Right? The jumblies.
Machine gun jumblies.
They have some weird machine guns coming out of the jumblies. No, give them fucking warp abilities where they're like, poop, poop, I'm here. Like.
Warp titty blaster.
No, I mean like show
that's the
up.
thing. You're starting to break down and like argue about how game mechanics are balanced. And the reason I think that they do it on tabletop is because it balances the game better. If you were to say all weapons have infinite range, but in order to balance that, Tyranids now move 22 inches. That means at 22 inches, it can advance 3d6 and can charge 4d6 because they're based on speed, or demonettes or whatever. Then you'd have me come out of cover, move 22 inches towards you, potentially move another 18 inches towards you, and then charge. And you'd be like, what the fuck? You cross an entire field in one. Now you get back to the same argument.
No, I wouldn't say you give them that ability. You make them cheaper. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing is they use points to try to balance things also, but it makes like, okay, so a Tyranid army is supposed to be hundreds of thousands.
But we're also not talking about the game mechanic of points balancing, which is a different mechanic. We're talking about the game mechanics of how the game is played. And the reason that there are ranges and stuff is because they're trying to make it so that it is a facsimile of a much larger battle. They're trying to take
talking about the fact that an entire melee unit is stupid.
Dedicated melee.
Because you know what I think of, right? Do you remember, what was it? Monty Python, the Holy Grail?
Yeah,
and the dude's like, boom, and he's like running and they're just like sitting at the castle. Well, imagine that person sitting at the castle with like a mounted machine gun.
And he keeps running.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like,
and he keeps running.
And he's just like,
well, I mean,
and then the dude's like, you know what? And he's got this machine gun. He goes, nah, and then pulls out a fucking sword. Like, who would do that? Like,
here's the counter argument,
right?
Here's the counter argument to that, and this happens all the time right now. This is an actual thing, and it doesn't necessarily always end up in death, but people get fucked up really bad from it. There are idiots that go out and hunt wild boars with fucking 50 cal not machine guns, but 50 cal sniper rifles, because I've got this big piece of technology that has a lot of range and I'm going to go fuck up those boars. And they get off the helicopter. They're helicoptered in. They get off the helicopter with their giant ass gun and they're in like maybe knee high grass. And they take like 4 steps and a boar goes, oh, fuck you, and gores half their intestines out. And they never get a shot off because the animal, in this case, the Tyranid,
chainsaw.
But if that dude had a 50 cal revolver and a chainsword, he would have totally won.
Is that grass moving?
Yep.
If he had a flamethrower, it would have been there's all sorts of arguments that you can make, but there are animals now that are capable of closing that engagement range. Not only that, but like, and I'm sure somebody will argue on the Discord about this. There's the 21-foot rule. If I'm within 21 feet of you, I'm going to put a knife in you before you can shoot.
No, and I've lived that. All right, I've seen that. Like speaking from someone who's been stabbed by somebody,
it's
that shit happens.
How fast you can close a short distance.
Yeah, no, and I totally
can't move
agree.
that fast over long distance. But
I totally agree.
It also depends on how you're trained. We did it in an arena scenario that was only 18 feet across, and I was able to hit the dude twice with a airsoft sniper rifle with a full bolt before he hit me, before he was within range to swing a sword at me, because I knew what I was doing. You know, if I'm standing there and I don't know what I'm doing and it's my first time with a gun, sure.
Well, you got fog of war, you have the stress.
You
got tunnel
doing
vision.
it in a battlefield and doing it in an arena are also two different things.
Doing it to prove a point is different than natural. And that was kind of.
And I'm actually rather impressed that you got a full 2.
Yep. I was guessing
you could accurately
3.
get 1. You almost got 3.
And I didn't start chambered.
Oh, wow. You started dry?
The marshal dropped the flag and I chambered my first, and I still got him twice. And I mean, like, I wasn't aiming. I was just, I can hit your center mass from here.
Well, once you learn kind of how to point it, At
the same time, as the guy with the sword in armor made the point, he still dropped the sword into my shoulder. So even though I killed him, he would have killed me.
Although,
I would have died.
With the hole in his chest.
The better way to do it would have been to hit him once and then use the rifle to block the sword in proper bayonet tactic.
What is it? What are those units?
I wasn't going to do that.
What are those units?
I was not going to sacrifice my rifle in that point.
Like, is it definitely?
Well, you flip it backwards and use the stock, like the bottom side of the front grip.
And melee only.
Super slow and melee only.
Yeah, those Deathwing Terminators.
No, it's not Deathwing. I mean,
there's a unit. There's a Space Marine unit.
You said it earlier. Blade Guard.
Are they Blade Guard?
Yeah,
they're like super slow.
Yeah,
and only melee.
They move 6 inches. They have a slab shield and a power sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
no, that's Blade Guard.
That's what I obliterated off the table.
Yeah, if you're not doing riot
like
control,
just destroyed.
That's a terror tactic.
They had no chance.
That is 100% a terror tactic. That is, we are so badass, we can slowly march at you and still win. And it either works and psychs out the enemy, or it doesn't work and doesn't psych out the enemy.
Well, you have to use them certainly. Like
you can literally see that at League play. Certain people get so freaked out by those slow moving shielded units that they either focus their entire army on it, and then they get fucked up by
speaking
the other
on the table talk. Table talk. Speaking on the tabletop, table talk, Blade Guard are meant as countercharge units or units that you use for like.
So in a big line battle, which would be like a big open field battle,
if people are charging you
behind your line,
they'll hit your gun line. Use a blade.
In the pike and shot era.
Right.
Where you'd have your gun line of shot.
Exactly.
And then when the enemy cavalry charge, your pikemen go put their pointies out there and be like, no.
That is the tactics for those. Well, mainly. You can use them in other ways.
I mean, I can understand the tactics versus like Tyranids because they have a lot of melee.
That's kind of what I was theorizing right before you got here that I was just kind of speaking about is like you can see over the course of human evolution where like we had a heavy focus on bayonet doctrine because, right after pike and shot, it turned to full shot. Napoleon style.
The argument of melee weapons in 40k turned into the whole podcast.
Yeah, that's fine. We're still here.
We're still here. That's fine. But then from there, then you see bayonets were, good size because they were still expected to be able to counter cavalry should they need it.
Yeah.
Deter cavalry. But then it goes but then you go into the Boer War and there was a lot of melee in the Boer War. Which is actually what the Praetorian Imperial Guard Regiment is kind of based on. The pith helmet, red coat guys fighting against savage orcs as opposed to orcs with guns. Right. That's literally supposed to be an analogy for the
What are the red guys called? The red jacket guys?
Praetorians.
I've always wanted those.
Yeah.
They
look super
red
cool.
coats.
They're literally red coats with safari helmets. Yeah,
they
have big old mustaches and everything. Super cool.
Dope as shit. I love those.
There's a bunch of cool conversions for them. They did a sentinel, but it's actually
how does my mustache look, Arnold?
It's an elephant.
What are they?
It's an elephant with a minigun on top of it. It's super cool.
Praetorian
guards.
Your mustache looks fearsome, sir. Yeah. Bring me my blunderbuss.
Yeah, they're super. They're super.
That's totally how I envision it.
They actually have a blunderbuss for orcs. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, dude, it's so sick. He's like, hand me my last weapon, Matilda.
They're super tiny.
Super tiny pictures. Yeah. But they're super cool. They're based off the Boer War where it was the English versus the people of Africa, basically.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Emu War.
Yeah.
The Emu War.
Which is apparently
that's a real thing.
That is a real thing. Australians went to war with emus.
Oh my god!
So Australians
lost for
Australians armed with M16s lost against terror birds with big claws. There's another example.
Lewis guns, not M16s.
What's up?
Lewis guns, not M16s.
Oh, the thing that I had seen, they were saying that they were like M16s. They were like
it was before that. It was a World War I, like 2 era.
Oh no, there was another Emu War in the 60s.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't doubt it.
The emu population
they said
got too
literally
big.
The emu said we'll be back.
No, emus I think were like 20,000 strong, destroying like fields of farms.
They're like locusts. But
and so they were like, fine, bring out the Lewis guns, which are giant machine, like 30 caliber machine guns. Air cooled. No. Lewis guns, yeah.
My bad.
And so they're basically like they went out hunting emus, and like the first like 3 battles, the Australians lost.
Oh my god!
Emu, they're like, we shot that emu 6 times and it ran away.
So the emu's like feather and body, like so there were 2 major problems.
It's hard to hit the body when
it's hard to actually hit the body.
No, the emus are the bad guys.
So the emu population got too big, and they basically said open season on killing emus.
We literally mean Emu War, as in they went to war with the emus.
Right.
Like
Not people were using emus.
Are you fucking serious? People versus the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this is a thing.
This is the thing. This is like the most.
There's people charging into battle on emus.
No, 100%. So the Boer Wars, yes, we were. There were no actual Boers involved.
See that shit right there?
Yeah.
That one against fucking automatic weapons. Because one, it's really hard to hit the bird through the feathers, and two, they're basically fucking dinosaurs. So the bullets, even when they hit them, they're not necessarily going through their skin, and they're not necessarily hitting anything vital. And then that shit right fucking there is up on you, ripping your intestines.
Oh my God.
And there's a flock of 20,000 of them.
Yeah, and what they would do is they would actually run towards the guy shooting them.
They're aggressive.
So they would panic. And then they were like,
I would panic.
leave.
They're like, we'll strap it to a truck. And then the truck fucking crashed because it was trying to chase them.
Because the truck was driving too fast and got unstable.
What the fuck, dude?
Because these things can run like 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They're
Off-road,
like,
that's good enough.
So literally afterwards, they were like, "So we've successfully defeated the emus." They're like, "How many did you kill?" He's like, 1,000. He's like,
It's like, that's not nearly enough.
You killed 1,000. He's like, yes. He's like, they're 20,000. He's like, yes. He's like,
Yes.
And how much ammunition did you use? 10,000 rounds.
We won the battle. Okay, we won the battle.
Yeah.
So you used 10 rounds to kill one emu. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
He's like,
the ammo expenditure to kill ratio is garbage. Yeah. That's terrible. That's a terrible expenditure ratio.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's like that's close to like indirect artillery fire.
we need to make a 40K game.
It's close to the way that the training is done now. They 100% say in a normal firefight, a Marine, the most trained on how to shoot that we have in the United States, expends 399 rounds for every round that hits. Because combat, especially shooting combat, and I wanted to get into this as far as 40K, is not about killing the whole like one shot, one kill.
No, it's suppress and maneuver.
That is 100% a video game thing. It's all about outmaneuvering the enemy. You're trying to outmaneuver the enemy so they give up.
We need to make a 40K game where we fight emus.
I mean, that's basically the zombie game.
Right,
but we make emus. It's squigs.
Oh,
dude, the squig war.
Oh my God.
You give squigs or gene stealers like a 3-up invulnerable. That's all you do. You don't change anything about them. You just give them a 3-up.
You give them like 5 wounds apiece.
Yeah. No, you don't even need to. Yeah.
Just a flat 4-up,
4-up and 5 wounds apiece, and just see.
Yeah.
There you go.
Dude, that would be dope. We should do that.
So
the great squig war.
On the scale of how combat's changed. So Warhammer 40K focuses around a lot around the aesthetics of like trench warfare, World War I style trench warfare.
Yeah, it's an amalgamation of several time periods.
Yeah, that's why the tanks are garbage.
But that's what I was going to get to. On the way that combat has actually changed and the way we're at with combat now, the whole idea of these big open field trench warfare engagements hasn't happened since World War II. And the reason it hasn't happened since World War II is especially increasingly, we find ourselves engaged in urban environments. The idea that the big set pieces of the books and everything, especially when they're trying to make a specific point or they're talking about like Kriegsmen or whatever, they're specifically going, oh, open warfare, they're the big trench lines, blah, blah, blah. But those are probably the exceptions of how combat in 40K is actually working. My guess would be that most 40K combat is incredibly dense urban environment, close quarters combat. So you're coming around the corner with a bolter, or you're coming up to a corner with the bolter, and you may make the decision at that point, I'm going to lead with my axe or my sword because I don't know what's around the corner, and that's going to make more sense. I mean,
realistically, I think you've kind of hit the nail right on the head as to why there is such an emphasis on melee combat in 40K. It's because of like, and what we have trouble perceiving, because this is a big argument online.
Oh yeah.
Is why is this a thing? And like, for me, like I more or less pick the argument because I like arguing sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm good at that.
Hate your fucking guts.
You're a real piece of work.
You're a real piece of work. But I think you've like I said, you've pinned the nail right on the head, is that the vast apocalyptic cataclysmic worlds that these guys are fighting in this imaginary universe are so extensive that if you can imagine it, every battle is like a trench warfare.
Yeah.
Where you've got to jump into the trench, and you've got to, it's meant to be that, like that slogging, dogging fight through muck and grime and hand to hand, like that's basically what they emphasize.
I had watched a video a while back that kind of like touches on why is trench warfare a thing in sci-fi? And it's, well, as guns get more powerful, digging underground becomes more likely.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the easiest thing that people have figured out to how to not get shot is just to be not shootable, which is very easily if you just dig a big ass hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's very easily done by humans.
Yeah.
So as long as humans have guns and shovels, we will dig trenches. It's just that's just what we do.
Yeah. I mean, most of the pictures you see that you're pulling up right now, you're like, look at that. Like that's a nightmare.
That's a block.
Oh yeah, that would be a terrible warfare situation.
That's one side of a block and another side of a block. That's how tight these combats are happening. And whether or not you are digging trenches because you're trying to deal with that, or whether or not you're trying to take an urbanized environment, that's going to be almost all of the warfare that you see. Realistically, in a science fiction universe, I would imagine the actual warfare would be like Star Trek warfare. And Star Trek, I think one of the reasons they don't focus on warfare is because, well, they've got all this fucking crazy phaser shit. I'm going to park one ship above your planet and I'm going to shoot all of your water centers and all of your power centers in a 16-minute period.
That's kind of
what the fuck are you going to do?
Star Wars has, they have varying degrees of orbital bombardment scale that the Imperials would use on planets that were non-compliant. And I'm sure the Imperium has probably done the same things. It's just not as dramatic, where it's like, oh, this planet doesn't want to be in the Imperium anymore. Well, first we'll just blow up all their spaceports so they can't trade. Then we'll blow up all their fields so they start starving to death. And then when they go, oh, hey, being in the Imperium's not so bad, we'll execute the leaders and leave the peasants alive and then rebuild the planet. Yeah. Like, that is totally a thing that they can do.
And our emphasis is going to be on how do we protect, or how do we guarantee the survival of the agri fields and the water sources. So we're going to take out your water treatment plants. We're going to take out your communication centers. We're going to take out your method of getting off planet. We're going to blockade you with a navy. And like that would probably be real combat. The only reason I think that there is an emphasis, and you guys had mentioned this earlier, in science fiction universes of there being combat, is because there has to be something cool to watch. And that's the other thing. Yeah. That's the company answer to all of these arguments. Rule of cool. A chainsword.
It's just the emphasis on, the fact that 40k is dismal and cataclysmic. I mean, that's essentially why it's so over the top. You can't be over the top unless you have an emphasis on melee combat.
Right. Yeah, it's so grimdark.
Even going to that, you see in Star Wars Episode 1 starts with the blockade of Naboo by the Trade Federation. But there's in Star Wars, there's the legality of somebody blockading the planet that they have to deal with, where I'll make it legal. But that's also expensive. It's notoriously known that a blockade is probably one of the most expensive things that you can do with a navy, because it requires you to deploy your navy, one of your most expensive assets, in enemy territory for an extended period of time. Whereas the Imperium is stretched thin and needs to be able to react to other things.
They also make a joke in the second one where Anakin makes the joke about aggressive negotiations. Like that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Actual science fiction combat would probably be ambassadors and negotiation. And then they fail and something happens, and
a spec ops team goes in and murders somebody, and then the war's over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. It's over. It's over already.
It's shadow ops. It's all shadow.
Tom, you identified that this is a huge argument in the 40k
issue.
Huge issue. Do you guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap up here? Anything you want to say? It's a big emu.
Listen, you're really ostriching here.
I guess all I can say is fix bayonets and hope for the best.
Player would say.
As I said, I picked the argument because I think it needed to be argued. Like it's fun. To be talked about.
It's a good discussion.
Yeah, but ultimately, I like it because it fits the universe.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe.
Well, go ahead. You're closing.
My closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Space Crusade.
Space
Crusades. That's why there's melee. Space Crusades.
My final thought. I mean,
that's Space Crusades. No shit, right?
I agree with Tom. Time and place. Like you don't run Blade Guard veterans up the field. Like that's just not a thing. But Vanguard veterans, on the other hand, that actually have like jump packs, they are dedicated close combat, but they're jumping from point A to point B with flanking tactics, things that you have to take into consideration.
Dropping grenades on their way in,
dropping from the sky.
Yeah.
Like there's
Imperial Knights having feet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna step on that. Yeah, I'm gonna step on that thing. Like,
why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, time and place. There's definitely tactics involved. Like I think it's comfortable to have close combat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it adds to the rule of cool. I think that's a huge part of it, especially understanding. I see the argument as to why there should be entire melee armies. And when I say that, I don't mean you should run Space Marines as an entire melee army. I mean, Tyranids make sense in a lore and sci-fi universe setting. In fact, the chances that we would find something like the Tyranids that are kind of focused and driven and hive, and just unstoppable, and that there would be no reason for them to have ever developed. Realistically, I have almost the opposite opinion when it comes to Tyranids. I don't really think Tyranids, it makes sense that Tyranids have bioweapons. I think bioweapons are cool as shit.
I completely agree.
But I think Tyranids should just be, they burrow and they run.
Yeah,
they should just have more rather than in going like, oh, the humans are shooting us with big cannons. Let's make our own big cannons to fight them. They'll just be like, you know what we need? We just need more slightly larger bugs.
Make Carnifexes have 10 wounds. They have a natural 2-up armor save, and then
they have like 9.
Do they currently have 9?
We'll find out, because guess who's getting a larger Tyranid army?
Tom goes from trying to sell his Tyranids to trying to buy more Tyranids on a monthly basis.
I built like
I'm getting
6
Greg's
Carnifexes last week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So that means Greg's balls have been officially removed.
Oh, poor Greg.
What?
Bummer.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to drop this shit in the middle of the podcast, man?
Hey,
that's a bummer.
Yeah.
December.
That's where I'm going today. I'm going into Greg's place. That's why we got to leave. Got to go. Bye. See you, everybody. Thanks for joining the podcast.
I gotta go.
Greg, you fucking piece of shit.
December
piece of work,
18th,
Greg.
we're gonna have to have like a little coffin ceremony and just like push it out into the void of space.
Oh yeah, with Greg on it.
You know what we're gonna need? I'm gonna need to take
we'll have a little
my
match,
guardsman
like
bits. We're gonna make guardsman Greg, and we're gonna put him at the feet of the Tyranofex. And it'll be guardsman Greg.
Just be
it'll just be his upper half.
It'll be. You just gotta paint a little beard. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. It'll be just.
And then we're just have like a ball sack hanging from the Carnifex's like
Red
mouth.
chin.
Yeah,
Wow.
Like one of his legs.
ball chinny and Carnifex. What's Greg's wife's name?
Doesn't matter.
I'm not gonna say it on the podcast.
She should
I was
shall
saying
not be
that
named.
we're in no, I'm just kidding.
Tom's like, I'm saving it for the reveal of my Hive Fleet name. Okay, I'm saving it.
Oh my god! Yeah. Oh my god!
Hive Fleet Karen.
I haven't even thought about that yet. Oh my god! Oh my god! It's gonna be great.
Why you guys keep saying my wife's name on your stream? Oh, it's just the name of my.
That's just the name of the Hive Fleet, man.
It's not my fault.
It's a coincidence.
Hold on, so I gotta figure it out now.
All right, so I guess one more closing. So one thing that I actually like is the fact, because of melee combat, it changes the way the ranged factions behave
and how they have to behave.
And how they have to behave. Like a Lehman Russ is shaped like a Lehman Russ because that is the combat it's expected to be in.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like Space Marines have melee weapons because they expect to be in melee. Like you're saying, there's a time and a place,
right?
But it forces the other people to adapt.
But
Farsight had to learn how to close combat. You know, like things like that.
Hive Fleet Morgides.
Hive Fleet Megalodon.
I see what you did there.
Oh my god, that's better. Is that real?
No, it's not a real.
It's not a real Hive Fleet.
No,
Done.
no.
Hive Fleet Megalodon.
The other thing to keep in mind and to riff off you real quick, Kevin, before we actually wrap up, is the other thing that would happen if the mechanics of the game were kind of fixed to be gun line only, is you'd have the meme of Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man 3 times. If Guard fought exactly like Tau, fought exactly like Space Marines, you lose a lot of the fun flavor of the game. I mean, technically it's a lot more tactical and it's a lot more realistic, but I don't know, man. I'm having this issue right now as I'm kit bashing my Kroot up, because I've started to look at, am I going to use Firstborn Marines as the template for how I run my Kroot army, or am I going to use Imperial Guard? And a lot of people are like, use Imperial Guard. Kroot shouldn't be that powerful. And I'm like, read Kroot lore. Kroot should be that powerful. But even at that point, the whole idea of like, here's my Kroot army and I base them on Imperial Guard, and now I'm going to play them on tabletop with Kevin, and like, okay, great. Like we're playing
Imperial Guard versus Imperial Guard then.
How exciting is that? I mean, and probably for a game or two would be exciting, but like the third time we played each other, it'd be like, okay, we know whoever rock, paper, scissors first with the big vehicle is going to win.
I would run them as Eldar.
No, too squishy.
No, too squishy.
I would think more like orcs, where you would have you'd be at a high toughness, but you don't really have a high armor value.
Yeah,
because I feel like Kroot have high armor.
They're just naturally tough.
Bone armor.
And bone armor. Is that
bone armor.
I think it would definitely need to be like, realistically, the way to do it is to sit down and need to do and build its own codex.
We need to do what we said. We need to have a Kroot codex episode where we create like toughness, and then we fucking play it.
Hell yeah.
And that'll be our stream.
I don't think we have enough Kroot.
Yeah, we do. I have 20 plus hounds.
All right, we should wrap this up though.
I have 60 unbuilt Kroot, and I have a lot of Kroot.
Kroot story, bro. Bye.
Where's Emmett? Don't show your face without Emmett.
Emmett was down below, but Emmett has. I'll put a picture of Emmett up. Yeah. So, do you guys have some strong opinions about the conversation as to whether or not bolters should be more powerful than chain swords, or if chain swords don't need to be in the game? Maybe you've developed your own custom codex along the idea that we just teased out of wanting to work on the Kroot codex through the podcast. We'd love to hear those ideas. We'd love to see the gunline armies, or the ideas that you guys have about an entire chainsword army. I want to see your chainsword army. Send me your entire chainsword army
that
pictures.
Would be pretty rad
I want to see them.
To see.
And you can get
the full army of
chainswords. This is a cannon, and it just fires fucking chainswords.
Oprah, she's like, you get a chainsword. You get a chainsword.
Yeah, I mean, there was that meme a long time ago of the rocket propelled chainsaw.
Yeah. That was like one of the OG memes.
That was an OG.
Nothing says fuck you like a flying chainsaw. Yeah.
One of the first fucking mods that I ever played for Half-Life, the original Half-Life, was called Rocket Crowbar, where the crowbar fired rockets. It's like the rocket launcher shot head crabs.
Yeah, that's what I was.
You know, it's actually this is totally unrelated, but that reminds me that it is funny because the DayZ mod back when it was running in Arma 2 was actually the hatchet weapon fired 7.62 tracers from the AT4. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Jesus, yeah.
That was like the coding that they used,
right?
But they nerfed the range to like 3 feet.
3 feet. Oh, that makes sense.
So when you would first pull out the hatchet, you had to reload it, and you reload it like an AT4. It does the AT4 loading animation on the hatchet.
Hold on, let me reload
my hatchet real quick, and then you
bury this in your face.
Then you put it up on your shoulder like this, like it's a rocket launcher. But then when you swing, it comes down like a hatchet.
Are you guys old enough to remember there was a stealth shooter called IGI? It was I'm Going In.
No.
So
I remember that one. I'm not a big fan of stealth games.
It was a stealth shooter. It was a third-person stealth shooter, and it was built by a group of guys that were. It was like Far Cry. It was just before Far Cry, but it was built by a group of guys who had a lot of experience working on the Microsoft Flight Simulator engine, and that was the engine that they used to base their game on. So you were like this James Bondy dude, and like you'd sneak in and everything. And I figured out really quickly that they didn't do any of the editing for like the physics drop off because it's a flight simulator engine. So that you've got this, and there's a dude in a tower 300 yards away, and I pull up the binoculars and I'd center the crosshairs of the binoculars on the guy, and then I'd switch to the pistol and I go, and the guy would go,
Oh yeah,
like 300 yards away with a pistol.
Yeah.
Like, why would I use any other gun?
You do that with Halo. You'd have the sniper rifle out, and then you just switch to the rocket launcher and fire where you were aiming, and you'd hit it every time.
Hit the dude. You guys have any of that cool stuff you want to email us? You can email us at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com. That's probably the best way to get us lore. It's the best way to get us directly pictures and stuff like that if you want to share out. However, we do also have an active Discord community. You can contact us a little bit more frequently through that. We also have a couple of cool things over on our Discord community, including painting contests, the community writing project.
It's pretty much kind of the best way to reach us. You know, Discord is I think I use that more now than I do my actual telephone.
Yeah. I use Discord on my phone more than I use my phone on my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
I text message with, I don't like text message with text messenger. It's always either Facebook or Discord pretty much.
Yeah.
There's only two people that I text, and that's a group text with people who refuse to use Discord and Facebook to text message. They're those people.
Yep. Like me. Is that me? Because I refuse to use Facebook?
It's not actually you.
I feel called out.
No, we talk through Discord most of the time.
Yeah.
Or Facebook.
Yeah. I don't.
He's talking about the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the people who won't use Facebook Messenger on their phone. They're like, no, I just don't use Facebook on my phone.
If you guys want to support us a little bit more directly, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. We have a couple of things up there currently, and we are diligently working to get a bit more out as time goes on and as we kind of settle into working as a remote podcast. This is a new thing for us. This is only our third episode as a remote podcast, and that kind of threw a monkey wrench into it, but we do have some really cool stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, everything's fucked.
It's also a good way to get some milestones on what we're planning on doing. One of the things that we're looking at doing is upgrading some camera equipment and upgrading some microphone equipment just to bring a better experience to you guys through this stream and through the podcast. If you want to find us online, use our link tree, which is linktree/underthehive. That gives you access to everything, including our Facebook group and our Twitter or various Twitters and Instagram accounts. We have started doing Miniature Mondays where we feature a miniature from somebody in the community. So if you've got a miniature that you'd like us to feature, find a way to contact us and get that information to us as soon as possible. We've also restarted doing work in progress Wednesdays so people can see what we're working on and we can share in what you guys are working on. And when I can actually find them, I dig into the way back machine and pull up some throwback Thursdays. And Tom, as our eBay rescue specialist, you should start finding some of those super old models, because that'd be cool to like get the old Hive Tyrant, like really goofy looking one. That'd be awesome. Painted up. Well, boys, I have to admit, I never figured we would be this deep in the sump and still have a usable signal or breathable air. Hell, this far down, it's even warm enough to be damn near shorts and sandal weather.
Steamy.
Smells fine to me.
Crusty.
Couple extra feet never hurt anybody, right?
Sure smells like it down here.
Of course, we might end up like these little fuzzy things filled with teeth that we found, with maybe a few extra eyes. Between these adorable, if slightly bitey critters and this stockpile of archaeotech, I only have one question. What do we name them, and how many credits can we make off of selling each one? I mean the critters, just, you know. You think, guys, we could make enough with this haul to buy our own bar stools at the Toenail?
Ew.
Do we want that?
I don't want anything.
I'd like to buy my toenails back from the bar stool.
Always remember, better the four-armed emperor you know than the sump gator you've never met. We'll talk to you guys next time here at 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio.
Signing off. Oh.